Thank you, Nick. At this time, I'd like to introduce the members that are seated in front here, and I'll just go from my right. Start with David Ford, the FBI Special Agent in Charge. Thank you. Jack Campbell, Undersheriff, Sangamon County. Mayor J. Michael Houston. Willis Logan, Executive Assistant to the Mayor. Police Chief Robert Williams. Donald Everest, President of the PB&PA number 5. And then you've already met Nick Stojakovic from Hope Church here in Springfield. At this time, we'd like to bring up Mayor Mike Houston for remarks and a proclamation proclaiming this Police Week. Mayor Houston.
Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon. You know, to members of the Springfield Police Department, you are part of a very special profession. You know, if you think about it for a moment, our federal government declares the month of May as National Police Memorial Month in the United States. The state of Illinois, during the course of May, takes a week and does the same thing. And we in the city of Springfield take another week and do that same thing. This week gives us the opportunity to recognize officers who have done an outstanding job, not only in terms of the performance of their duties, but also for the service that they provide to the community. The first event that I attended that was like this was in 1979. It was a different type of event. Budgets were a little different in those days, and we did a luncheon. And as I was walking into the Hilton, I seen Silver Sorez, and I stopped to talk to him. And when I stopped to talk to him, he said, when you walk up there and you speak today, tell the officers that are in the audience that you were riding in a police car before most of them were born. Now today I can modify that a little bit and say that I was riding in a police car before all of you were born. But as a youngster, which were different times, I regularly rode with Silver Sorez and his partner, David Barron, at the time when they were both patrol officers. I relate that story to you from the aspect that I want you to understand that I have a deep respect for what you do. That's a respect that I've had almost from the time I was born. My father carried mail here in Springfield for 26 years. My father, I think, was a good mailman. But in his 26 years carrying mail, the one feeling he always had was that nobody appreciated the job that he did. And I want to assure you, as mayor of the city of Springfield, I appreciate what you do on a daily basis. I appreciate what your families do to support you, because it's as difficult for your families in terms of what they are providing in support as what you do on a daily basis. So on behalf of the people of the city of Springfield, I do want to thank you, and I do have a proclamation that I would like to read. Whereas President John F. Kennedy in 1962 was the first United States president to officially recognize police officers of this country by designating May 15th as Police Officers Memorial Day, and whereas each succeeding United States president has rededicated that day, and whereas the Springfield Police Department and its officers protect the lives and properties of all citizens and visitors to our city, and whereas today we recognize and honor those officers who have in the past year provided outstanding service to the city of Springfield, its residents, and its visitors, and whereas Tuesday, May 23rd, 2013 has been designated as Police Memorial Day in the city of Springfield. Now therefore I, J. Michael Houston, Mayor of the city of Springfield, do hereby proclaim the month of May Police Month in the city of Springfield and call upon all citizens to honor and show sincere appreciation to the men and women who make it possible for all of us to live in safety in our homes and community. And again, on behalf of the people of the city of Springfield, I want to thank you for what you do 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to bring up Police Chief Robert Williams Jr. for remarks. And as he's coming up, I always take this opportunity because I know Robert pretty well, and I always like to embarrass him just a little bit because I'm telling you, I don't think that there's a better chief of police anywhere in this country than the chief that we have here, Robert Williams. He sets a fine example on a daily basis, and many times I know that acknowledgement and that recognition doesn't come in the form that it should, but I always like to take this opportunity at this event to say, Chief, we love you and we appreciate the job that you do every day, and thank you for your leadership here in your hometown of Springfield. Chief Williams.
Sandy, I certainly thank you for that introduction, and I was taking you to lunch no matter what. But on a serious note, good afternoon and welcome to our annual award ceremony. You know, this is my 4th time standing before you as the Chief of Police for the City of Springfield. And as always, it is truly an honor and a privilege. Today at the Springfield Police Department, we get to put the spotlight on the men and women who are actively working on the front lines. Men and women, like the mayor said, who are actively working and completing shift work. In many cases, like I said, 365 days a year, 7 days a week. Men and women who have to balance a grueling schedule. And you know, sometimes we gloss over things like that, grueling schedule. But I wasn't always the chief. I was a patrolman who came up through the ranks. And I don't care what anybody says, it's unnatural to be wide awake at 4:30 in the morning. And it's just not, like I said, natural to be awake at 4:30 in the morning, but not only do they get to work that grueling schedule, they also have some very dangerous assignments. And they also get to frequently observe society at its worst. And while all that's going on, like the mayor also said, life happens. There's still music and dance recitals. There's still championship games, and we have to balance all of that out. So again, I say it's an honor for not only me, but I hope every last one of you to pause in our busy schedule and just to say thank you to the men and women for their service. And we don't always get the opportunity to stand up and applaud the men and women who keep us safe. So that's what makes today special for me. Also, as you look at my distinguished panel behind me, you'll see representatives from all factors of law enforcement. On my right, the Special Agent in Charge, Dave Ford, all the way to our Undersheriff, Jack Campbell, as we go around to Donnie Edwards. And that's the way it happens in law enforcement. We realize that we work in concert. We work together to keep the citizens safe. And the last thing that I'll say is that if it were up to me, I'd give every member of the Springfield Police Department an award today. But that's not possible. However, we can give each and every active member of the Springfield Police Department a hand clap. Let's give it up for the Springfield Police Department. Next, I see a few retirees in the crowd. So if there's any retirees from the Springfield Police Department, please stand and be recognized. Any sworn retirees? Dave, I'm gonna pick on you if you don't stand up. Finally, this is an award ceremony, so can we get any recipients, past recipients that have won our William Herndon, Porter Williams, Silver Suarez, or the Abraham Lincoln Award? Please stand at this time and be recognized. And on that note, I'll turn it over to our MC, Director Sandy Robinson. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we're going to go to the awards portion of our ceremony, and we'd like to have Officer Don Edwards join Chief Williams here at the table. and be prepared to present the awards. The committee asks all recipients to please allow the details of the award to be read first, and then you'll be asked to come forward to accept your award. Our first presentations will be certificates of appreciation and recognition of civilians for their acts above and beyond in community service. Got to get it right here. The first civilian award is going to be presented to Frank Havey. On October 15th, 2012, an officer responded to a call to locate a subject matching the description of a person wanted on a Sangamon County warrant. When the officer arrived at the location, the subject fled on foot. The officer gave chase while ordering the suspect to stop, but the subject refused. A citizen observed the officer pursuing the suspect and began to run after the subject. The citizen managed to grab the suspect's shirt, but the subject wiggled out of it and continued to run. After a lengthy pursuit, the suspect was finally apprehended but continued to struggle as the officer attempted to secure him. The citizen assisted the officer by holding the suspect's wrists as the officer handcuffed the suspect. Once the suspect was securely restrained, he confirmed his identity and that he knew he was wanted on a warrant. This citizen's selfless and immediate action to assist an officer in the pursuit of and eventual arrest of a wanted suspect is heartening. It is encouraging to know that there are individuals such as Mr. Havey in our fine city who will assist at a moment's notice. After the arrest, Mr. Havey revealed to the officer that he was an auxiliary police officer several years ago for the department. At this time, will Frank Havey please come forward and accept your certificate of appreciation? The next award, Civilian Certificate of Appreciation, will be presented to Cassandra Brown Young. On August 15, 2012, an 11-month-old child stopped breathing. The infant's grandmother came out of her house holding the child and attempting to perform CPR. A neighbor observed that the grandmother was upset and distraught and went over to see what was wrong. The grandmother reported that the child started shaking and then stopped breathing. The neighbor advised that she knew infant CPR and then began to perform CPR on the infant. The neighbor was able to open the child's airway and he began breathing on his own. She then stayed with the infant until paramedics arrived. This neighbor's quick and effective action, without a doubt, may very well have saved this infant's life. It is encouraging to know that the city has fine citizens like Ms. Brown Young who are willing to get involved and assist others in their time of need. At this time, will Cassandra Brown Young please come forward to accept your award? We would now like to award the following officer certificates of appreciation for their dedication and commitment to the community. The first sworn officer certificate of appreciation will be presented to Detective Shane Overby. Shane Overby was assigned a retail theft case in which a large amount of undergarments were stolen from a Springfield business. A Crime Stoppers tip identified a suspect who resided in Quincy, Illinois. Detective Overby made contact with the suspect and set up an interview with him at Quincy Police Department. Prior to the interview, Detective Overby learned from a Quincy detective that the suspect may have violated his sex offender restrictions by visiting local parks and possibly making contact with juveniles. During the interview, the suspect initially denied being involved in the theft. Detective Overby was able to build a rapport with the suspect, who ultimately confessed to the theft. Using the information obtained from the Quincy detective, Detective Overby connected the theft of the undergarments and the suspect's possible uses for them to his status as a sex offender. Detective Overby's rapport with the suspect allowed him to dig deeper into the suspect's activities. The suspect eventually admitted to violating his sex offender restrictions and victimizing 2 Quincy juveniles. Detective Overby began his day with the intent to question a retail theft suspect. However, due to his interview and investigation skills, he was able to obtain a confession from a child sex offender. Thanks to Detective Overby's work, a predator in the Quincy community was uncovered. Will Detective Shane Overby please come forward to accept your certificate of appreciation? The next sworn officer certificate of appreciation will be presented to Officers Mike Mazerum and Dan Weiss. On January 5th, 2012, officers responded to a residential burglary. The homeowners arrived home and began to chase the suspect but lost sight of the subject several blocks away. Neighborhood police officers Mazerum and Weiss continued to actively investigate this burglary along with others that occurred in the area. The officers put together a photo lineup, but the victims were unable to identify a possible suspect. The officers maintained contact with the victims and during a subsequent conversation learned the suspect was wearing a distinct and unique style of clothing that had not been included in the original report. Almost a month after the original incident, while responding to another burglary in progress, officers detained a subject in the area who was wearing similar clothing and matched the physical description of the suspect in the previous incident. The subject informed officers that the clothing he was wearing was his personally designed style. Based on the officers' suspicions, they requested that the subject's prints be sent to the lab and compared with those recovered at the crime scene. Approximately 6 weeks later, the prints came back as a positive match to the suspect. The officers then located the suspect, who was subsequently interviewed. During the course of the interview, the suspect repeatedly denied any involvement, but finally confessed to the burglary. Upon conclusion of the interview, the officers were able to recover some of the stolen items from the suspect's possession. The professionalism and tenacity of Officers Mazerum and Officer Weiss resulted in the arrest of a suspect who surely would have victimized other citizens. At this time, will Officer Mazerum and Officer Weiss please come forward to accept their certificates of appreciation. We got some real live superheroes here in Springfield, I'm telling you. The next sworn officer certificate of appreciation will be presented to Officer Coker. On March 13th of 2012, Officer Coker was performing drug interdiction duties on Interstate 55 when he observed two northbound vehicles that appeared to be traveling together. He noticed several indicators of suspicious and nervous behavior being exhibited from the occupants of these vehicles and decided to investigate further. Officer Coker followed the vehicles as they exited the interstate, noting additional indicators. As the vehicles separated, he continued to investigate the lead car as it pulled into a local business. As he approached, the driver exited the car and ran into the business, further raising his suspicions. From a distance, he continued to surveil the car and the driver's suspicious actions. The driver eventually exited back onto the interstate. After developing probable cause, Officer Coker initiated a traffic stop. Upon approaching the vehicle, he continued to investigate, paying close attention to detail while noting the driver's nervous demeanor and other indicators of possible illegal activity. While speaking to the driver, he smelled a strong odor of raw cannabis and obtained consent to search the vehicle. Upon searching the vehicle, Officer Coker located approximately 37 pounds of cannabis packaged for bulk sale hidden in the vehicle. Due to Officer Coker's attention to detail, experience, and reliance on training, he was able to remove a substantial amount of cannabis from the hands of suspected drug dealers. Would Officer Jeff Coker please come forward to accept your certificate of appreciation? The next award will go to Detective Paul Carpenter and ID Tech Chuck Linhart. On September 30th, 2012, crime scene technician Chuck Linhart collected evidence at a residential burglary scene and developed what he believed to be unique markings left by the suspect or suspects. He recalled recovering similar markings at a previous residential burglary scene on September 14th. The next day, ID Tech Linhart located a suspect vehicle reportedly used in one of the burglaries. Detective Paul Carpenter and Linhart continued to investigate, recovering the items that made the unique markings. Additional information led officers to a local hotel room. A search of the room resulted in a large amount of stolen merchandise being recovered. Through ID Tech Linhart's attention to detail and Detective Carpenter's skillful interview techniques, they were able to identify 9 residential burglaries and recover additional stolen property from the suspect's residence. Detective Linhart and Carpenter worked together to quickly and effectively identify and stop a prolific three-person residential burglary team. That's easy for you to say. Would ID Tech Chuck Lynn Hart and Detective Paul Carpenter please come forward to accept your awards? The next awards are presented to Officers Joe Arnold and Jim Stewart. On October 15, 2012, while preparing to leave for work, an officer received a phone call from a citizen stating that a suspicious male in a gray sweatshirt was knocking on doors in her neighborhood. Officer Arnold was aware of several recent burglaries in the area and had recently spoken to a number of residents while following up on those burglaries and had asked for their assistance in reporting suspicious activity. Officer Arnold and Officer Stewart responded to the area and learned that the suspicious male had gone into a motel room located in the area. The officers met with a motel employee and discovered a known suspect was staying there. The officers then approached the room where the suspect was staying and found him along with another known burglar. The officers observed several suspected stolen items in plain view and interviewed the suspects. One of the suspects admitted the items were stolen and showed officers where he had committed the burglary earlier that day. Further investigation revealed the suspects were involved in several other burglaries. One suspect was ultimately charged with 8 residential burglaries and was implicated in several others, while the other subject was charged with possession of stolen property. Because of the professionalism and knowledge of Officer Arnold and Officer Stewart, an active burglar and his accomplice were arrested. It is through their dedication that stolen property was returned to its rightful owners and numerous other burglaries were no doubt prevented. At this time, will Officers Arnold and Stewart please come forward to accept their certificates of appreciation. Our next award is going to be presented to Officer Andrew Barnes. On October 19, 2012, Officer Barnes was conducting self-initiated traffic enforcement and narcotics interdiction on Interstate 55 when he observed a vehicle traveling northbound at such a slow speed that it affected the reasonable movement of traffic, which arose his suspicions. The officer then followed the vehicle from a distance, observing the driver's actions until he found a desirable location to conduct a traffic stop. Upon approaching the vehicle and speaking to the occupants, Officer Barnes smelled the strong odor of burnt cannabis coming from the passenger compartment. The officer then began to interview the driver and occupants about the odor, and the driver stated one of the passengers had smoked a blunt in the vehicle prior to them being stopped. Based on his training and experience, Officer Barnes noted several indicators of nervous behavior and possible illegal activity. The officer conducted a search of the occupants and the vehicle, locating a small amount of cannabis inside the passenger compartment. Knowing that narcotics are often hidden on the exterior of vehicles and within the engine compartment, Officer Barnes checked those areas as well, locating $38,174 hidden in the engine compartment. The officer then requested a canine officer whose partner alerted on the vehicle and the currency. Due to Officer Barnes' attention to detail and investigative skills, a substantial amount of suspect illegal currency was seized. Would Officer Barnes please step forward to receive your certificate of appreciation? Our next award is going to be presented to Detectives Josh Stunkel and Mark Pointer. On November 13, 2012, Detectives Josh Stunkel and Mark Pointer responded to a vehicular invasion and armed robbery. The suspect entered the victim's vehicle as she and her 3 young children left a local business. At gunpoint, the suspect forced the woman to drive to a nearby location where he robbed her before fleeing the scene in a vehicle that had been parked in the area. Detectives reviewed the security video of the incident and obtained a description of the suspect and vehicle that he fled in, along with possible license plate number. The license plate number, however, did not match the vehicle that was used in the robbery. Using different resources, the detectives were able to locate a similar plate number that registered to the same type of vehicle seen in the video. The vehicle in question was linked to 2 possible addresses in Springfield. While following up on this information, the detectives saw a vehicle matching the suspect's vehicle description and had it stopped by a patrol officer. 2 potential suspects were taken to the police station for interviews. Patrol officers assisted the detectives by supplying them with information of associates connected to the 2 suspects. Through initial interviews, detectives identified 5 possible suspects and witnesses who may have been present during the robbery. The detectives interviewed all of the suspects and witnesses who all gave inconsistent and false statements. Through skillful interview techniques, the detectives eventually got the subjects to provide truthful information. From this information, the detectives developed several leads, including a possible first name of the suspect and information that he may be on parole. Further investigation and assistance from a patrol officer led to a photo lineup being conducted and the suspect being identified. The suspect's information was passed along to the U.S. Marshals Violent Fugitive Task Force, which quickly located the suspect and brought him to the detectives for questioning. Detectives Stunkel and Pointer used numerous investigative resources and information from fellow officers to get the information headed in the right direction. From there, they were able to successfully thwart an attempt by those with intimate knowledge of the crime to give false information and protect the suspect. They ultimately gained the truth from the witnesses and then obtained a confession from the suspect, who was arrested and later pled guilty. At this time, will Detectives Josh Stunkel and Mark Pointer please come forward to accept your certificates. And our last sworn certificate of appreciation will be presented to Officer Jeff Paletti. Did I say that right? Paoletti. There we go. Thought I missed the vowel. On December 16th, 2012, a call was placed to Central Dispatch regarding 3 suspects attempting to break into a local business. Officer Jeff Paoletti and his partner responded and began checking the area for suspects. Officer Paoletti located the first suspect hiding behind a fence not far from the business. As officers secured the suspect, Officer Paoletti observed the other 2 suspects running northbound through neighboring yards. Officer Paoletti gave chase on foot and quickly apprehended the second suspect. Upon releasing the suspect to his partner, he continued to search for the third, eventually locating him running through a backyard a few blocks away. Officer Paoletti immediately began to chase the suspect while ordering him to stop. The final suspect ultimately surrendered and was taken into custody without incident. While in custody, one of the suspects admitted that they were attempting to burglarize the business. Due to Officer Paoletti's observations and tenacity, he was able to chase down and apprehend 3 suspected burglars. Would Officer Jeff Paoletti please come forward to accept your award? And I'm going to ruin the surprise, but he's Batman.
Yeah.
The next award is the Chief of Police Unit Citation. And this award will be presented to the Hostage Negotiation Team. The Chief's Unit Citation goes to the Hostage Negotiation Team. The purpose of the Springfield Police Department Hostage Negotiation Team is to provide the citizens of Springfield with a tactful police response in suicidal, barricaded, or hostage situations by negotiating with the subject involved. The goal of the team is to bring each situation to a safe and peaceful conclusion for everyone involved. The team's motto, "Let's Talk," is indicative of their commitment to finding a peaceful solution to a critical incident at hand. The team is composed of specially trained officers of various rank and divisions who serve on an as-needed basis. The duties of the negotiation team members are in addition to their regular full-time duties. All members attend specialized training courses pertaining to hostage negotiation, in addition to an ongoing in-house training program. Members are also cross-trained as crisis intervention officers. The team and its members are utilized several times a year and have been equipped at minimal cost to the citizens of Springfield. They have been very resourceful in utilizing surplus government equipment and donations from businesses and civic groups to provide the necessary logistics and communications equipment for the unit. The Springfield Police Department hostage negotiation team has been very successful in its mission and as such proven to be a valuable asset to the department and the community at large. It is therefore with extreme pleasure that Chief Williams directs his Unit Citation Award to be given to the hostage negotiation team, which consists of Lieutenant Steve Swetland, Lieutenant Greg Lucatus, Sergeant Jeff Barr, Sergeant Dave Wesselman, Officer Mark Mitchell, ID Tech Kim Overby, Detective Shane Overby, Detective Josh Stunkel, Officer Tara Unlin, Officer Ed Higginson, and Officer Kathy Martin. Would the members of the hostage negotiation team who are present today please come forward to accept your award? Our next award, the Abraham Lincoln Award, is intended to recognize the sworn personnel who through initiative creates or participates in a program or system that significantly improves the quality of life in the community and exceeds the normal expectations of job performance. This year's Abraham Lincoln Award will be presented to Officer Kim Overby. Officer Kim Overby is an outstanding and unselfish person who cares about her department and community as a whole, and it shows in everything that she does. Since 2006, Kim has helped coordinate and participated in the Springfield Police Department's efforts in the Central Illinois Polar Plunge, helping to raise funds that benefit the local Special Olympics and its athletes. Since 2010, Kim has spent many hours, including her own time, coordinating and planning the Community Blood Bank's biannual blood drives, including the annual Badges for Life competition. Her efforts to raise the awareness for the need to give blood has led to her actively recruiting participants. She has also participated and represents SPD in the Muscular Dystrophy Association's lockup, where local businesses and community leaders agree to be arrested for having a big heart, and this unique community-wide event raises funds for people with neuromuscular diseases. Kim has served as an elderly services officer until her transfer to the Criminal Investigations Division. Though no longer assigned as an ESO, she still is active with several social service agencies. Kim gives safety and career talks to the local Girl Scout troops, and she is a dedicated and caring person who regularly gives back to her community and represents the department in a positive light. At this time, will Officer Kim Overby please come forward and accept the Abraham Lincoln Award? Our next award is the Silver Suarez Award, and it is presented to the uniformed officer or officers on active duty performing the most distinguished act or acts of police work during the preceding year. This year's Silver Suarez Award recipient is Officer Jason Slowman. On September 1st, 2012, officers responded to a home where a 10-year-old female reportedly had been sexually assaulted by an intruder. The victim reported that a stranger entered her apartment and assaulted her while she was sleeping with her younger sibling. The only information the victim could give the officers was a nickname used by the suspect. With only the suspect's nickname as a lead, Officer Slowman reviewed the video surveillance and observed a black male fleeing the area and falling as he ran. He then located 2 witnesses who revealed that a man known by the same nickname had been seen in the area and had fallen while running. They also revealed this individual that he spoke funny and appeared as if he might have been under the influence. This information was relayed to case detectives. As one of the detectives was preparing to conduct a forensic interview with the victim, the other detective and Officer Sloman returned to the scene to continue the investigation. Officer Sloman continued to talk to the witnesses, and after several interviews, discovered that the individual talked funny because he had suffered an injury to his throat a few years ago. This information was relayed to the on-scene detective, who spoke to the victim's parents and learned that the father knew of the individual and was able to provide a possible last name. Officer Sloman and the case detective searched police records and found a report where the possible suspect had been injured and suffered damage to his voice box. Officer Sloman continued to search diligently for this individual between calls for service during his entire shift. Officer Sloman eventually made contact with the suspect, and ultimately the victim was able to positively identify him as the perpetrator. The suspect was arrested and charged with predatory sexual assault of a child and home invasion. Several of the bystanders and witnesses were reluctant to speak to officers, but through Officer Sloman's outstanding communication skills and his ability to work with the citizens of the community, he was able to convince them to provide the information needed for the public's safety. Because of the dedicated efforts and hard work of Officer Sloman, this individual is unable to prey on other children. At this time, will Officer Jason Sloman come forward to accept the Silver Warriors Award?
Based on the mayor's earlier comments and his familiarity with Chief Suarez, we're going to ask him to do the honors and hand this. You know, so much of what we do as police officers, everyone puts the emphasis on protection, and that's a very important and vital thing that we do. But if you look at the side of our squad card, that infamous slogan that we say says serve and protect, and the serve always comes first. So Jason, thank you for all you do as far as the service as well.
And our final award for the day is the William Herndon Award. This award recognizes the plainclothes police officer or officers who, while on active duty, that perform the most distinguished act or acts of police work during the preceding year. This year's William Herndon Award is presented to Detectives Josh Stunkel and Stephen Welsh. Detectives Stunkel and Welsh were assigned to investigate a violent armed robbery of a local business. 3 suspects robbed the business in a brutal fashion by displaying guns and threatening the employees with their lives while striking one of them in the head with a gun. Surveillance video of the business showed one of the suspects masked while the other 2 were not. The detectives took photos of the suspects to an apartment complex in the area in hopes that someone would be able to identify them. An individual immediately identified the 2 unmasked suspects. While detectives shared this information with patrol officers, who later located suspect number 1. While interviewing the suspect, detectives noticed several similar physical characteristics between him and one of the suspects in the video. The suspect ultimately confessed to his role in the crime but would not provide information on the other 2. The detectives then went to work disproving statements that suspect 1 gave to them that protected the identity of the other 2 suspects. They were also able to secure an arrest warrant for suspect number 2. While trying to locate suspect number 2, they went to his residence and spoke to his brother. The detectives immediately noticed that the brother had the same build as the masked suspect in the security video and started investigating the possibility that he may be the suspect number 3. Eventually, Detectives Stunkel and Welsh, along with assisting detectives, interviewed the girlfriend of suspect number 3, who stated he could not have been involved because he was with her out of town the day of the incident. While verifying the girlfriend's statement, officers learned that the couple had been out of town but had returned in time for him to have participated in the crime. While investigating suspect 3's alibi, detectives learned that he was wearing most of the same clothing the day of the incident as the masked suspect. The detectives obtained a warrant for suspect number 3 and arrested him at his residence. During the arrest, they noticed clothing in the residence that matched the suspect's clothing in the security video. A search warrant was then obtained and the clothing was recovered as evidence. The detectives continued their investigation by re-interviewing suspect number 3's girlfriend. She ultimately admitted to driving the suspects to the scene of the robbery, waiting for them, and driving them home afterward. In the end, the detectives were able to solve a brutal armed robbery case and arrest all 3 of the suspects. They did this through an aggressive and thorough investigation. At this time, would Detectives Josh Dunkel and Steve Welsh please come forward to accept their award, the William Henry Award. At this time, we'd like to bring Minister Stojakovic back up to offer us our closing prayer and to thank you all for your attendance today. And once again, just during this brief period of time, we know that we could not do justice to the type of thanks that we would like to give all the members of the Springfield Police Department, the support personnel, and others involved at the SPD on a daily basis. But we would certainly like to at least be able to say thank you to you all, and we will continue to try to say that on a daily basis for the work that you do 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Thank you all, and Minister Stojakovic, if you'll close us out.
It has truly been my honor to play some small part in this award ceremony here today. I've been humbled to listen to the courageous acts of wisdom, tenacity, and commitment that these men and women have exhibited. It's clear to me that they're not just collecting a paycheck or punching a clock, but they're committed to this community. Join me, those of you that care to, in a moment of silence and prayer as we dismiss. O gracious and mighty God, you who have instituted laws among men to keep all communities safe, to protect justice, to respect life and peace and tranquility. We, Lord, in this room today, have paused to give thanks to you, paused to give recognition to our brothers and sisters who serve daily in a difficult task. And we ask, oh God, that while we are gathered here today, and we will remember this event, that we be mindful that each and every day we all share in a greater community, and that we are all called to be instruments, civil servants, and to commit ourselves to doing good and looking out for the highest good of this community. We thank you that we've been honored and privileged to be here today and witness this ceremony. And may we be dismissed with God's peace. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you all for your attendance.